What is up, Adrian?
Oh, not much. Just got back from the great state of Texas not too long ago. So nice trip out there. Kind of, getting some things prepped.
We were chatting before the camera clicked on, and I didn't pay particular attention to it. I thought you had on like an old school Hot Wheels shirt, but that looks like
No,
the
shout out to CrossFit Wild Thing. I don't know how well the camera is framed up, but
yeah.
hopefully people can see that. It's a local affiliate here in the greater Nashville area, and they are awesome. Great affiliate.
Drop
doing it
on
right.
by.
Drop on by. Shout out to Miles, the owner out there. He's a great dude.
Well, as always, everybody, we appreciate you watching and listening. And here's my little, pump of the information at the beginning of the show. If you own a gym, I don't care what kind of gym it is, CrossFit gym, powerlifting gym, Olympic lifting gym, whatever. You got Busu balls and Pilates equipment. We don't care. You got a gym going on. You got to track the fitness of your members. You got to do some billing. You got to do some gym management. BTWB's got you covered. Go to btwb.com. You can check out their all-in-one system for all that. Simplify your life. And the other side of the coin, go to variednotrandom.com. And we got a lot of cool stuff we put together to help you get your first strict pull-up, handstand push-ups, some ring muscle-up work. There's some barbell stuff. There's some running stuff to hopefully help you on your fitness journey. So check those things out. Today's topic,
Pat, before we get there, you jogged my memory. I got 2 points before we even dive in. I had a coworker approach me, and kind of out of the blue, I was a little surprised. And she said, "Hey, your first muscle up program, I got my first muscle up. I followed it, and I've been working on it for a long time." And that was what got her over the hump. So that was very, very cool to hear. So
that's awesome. That's awesome.
One of those things that makes you feel good about putting that kind of stuff out there. So hopefully you guys, there's some other success stories out there. Check those things out if you're working on some of those skills.
And not to downplay it, right? But if you can rewind the clock into your head as to in your introduction to CrossFit, when the elusive ring muscle up, that's when you're first getting into it. It seems like the stuff that legends are made of. It seems like witchcraft, and to get your first muscle up is a huge deal. So that's really cool. Congrats. That's awesome.
Yeah. And second, I just wanted to make fun of you for the way that you said Bosu ball. Busu ball, the disrespect.
Sorry.
Don't even. I love it. It's the flagrant disregard for.
I'll hear about that on Reddit. Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
What is it?
Anybody who's defending that thing.
Is it Bosu? What is it?
I think it's technically
Bosu ball. Okay, I'm gonna get one of those ones that's cut in half and do some overhead squats on it.
That's what they are. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, today's question comes from the community, the VNR community, and I will read it to you. It's from Joey T. Joey T says, "How do you deal with quote unquote listening to your body while not having FOMO, fear of missing out? I feel like I'm falling apart lately. Low back pain, recently tweaked my knee. I got some kind of tennis elbow or golfer's elbow happening. It's all kinds of stuff happening. But," he admits, "I'm being stubborn and stupid. I also did today's workout." So even though he felt this way, he did the workout of the day. "And I don't think I should have, of course, with all my ailments, but I'm also convinced that I need to do every workout or else I will become an amorphous blob."
Man.
First of all,
I mean,
shout out for using the word amorphous.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think we can all, at some level, relate to the fear that if I spend a day on the couch, it's just going to spiral. And next thing you know, I'm going to be an unmotivated, useless, person that's just not engaging with their life. Of course, none of us wants to end up in that situation. And it sounds like at least he can point out this thinking in himself that it's a little extreme.
Right.
So that's good, that kind of self-identification. But the first thing that jumps out to me is kind of a chicken and egg question, really. He's talking about how he's quote unquote falling apart. And we have kind of a description of the Tin Man going on here, right? He's got knee things going on, an elbow thing, a back thing. My question is, where did this start? Is this maybe because of the mentality he's been bringing to the table for a long term? And maybe that's landed him in this situation that he's starting to feel beat up? Do you know what I'm saying? I'm not sure. I'm curious
I hadn't thought about that, but I would think you're right. If he says he admits to acting in a stupid and stubborn way, the stubbornness tells me too much too soon, doesn't want to scale, doesn't want to reduce something, going to gut out
Or
whatever it is.
or too much for too long. I think
Yes,
there's
and for
lots of
too
people
long. And for too long, yeah.
that find
Yep.
themselves in that situation. And something I think we've talked about a lot is I think it's kind of funny because when you get to a certain level of fitness and a certain level of work capacity, you can tolerate more, technically speaking. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I can go and hit myself over the head twice in a day for multiple days in a row.
Yes, sir.
But that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a good thing for me, and it may accelerate the decline of some of these issues that you've got going on. So I am kind of curious, like, when did some of these ailments start popping up? Were they acute things that, maybe it's just bad luck? That's possible too. Or is this kind of telling the tale of something that chronically has maybe just something to do with a little bit too much volume for a little bit too long? That would be something I would really want to dig in here and get to the bottom of.
Fair question. And would you say the two most likely paths or culprits are, number one, maybe you are on occasion like scaling or modifying if needed, but then you don't respect the rest days. You see a workout that looks very inviting and you do that as well, and then you never rest. Or you could be taking your rest days, but then on the days that you do work out, you're making poor decisions on those days and you're overloading yourself. You're doing too much reps or overloading for where maybe you're a beginner intermediate athlete. You should most certainly scale, but you don't. And then that was too much. You don't recover even though you took that rest day, and then it's workout day again. You overdo it again on that day, and here we are.
Yeah, it could be a little bit of both. I mean, reading between the lines, we've got self-admittedly unable to take the foot off the gas. I would bet, if I were a betting man, that this is the situation where it's like, hey, Pat, why don't you just come to the gym with me? I know it's the rest day. I know that you should just be taking it easy, but I'm just going to go and stretch out.
Active
And
recovery.
next thing you know, maybe we'll just like get 5 minutes on the bike or something and, just kind of get the blood flowing
Right.
a little and we'll stretch out and call it a day. And next thing you know, it's, hey, why don't we work on some muscle ups? And then next thing you know, it's like, I haven't deadlifted in a little bit. Let's load some plates up on there and just see how it's feeling. And before you know it, you're 90 minutes deep into a sweat sesh. And, that rest day is evaporated pretty quickly. I would bet that situation is probably common for this individual.
It could be, and Joey's question primarily, how do you deal with listening to your body when you've got FOMO? So I would say, first of all, the fear of missing out thing, straight talk, right? Joey, you're not missing out on anything. Even if it feels profoundly important, like in the grand scheme of things, to take a step back as an emotionless android, it's just a workout.
Sure.
I know that there are life lessons learned in the gym. I trust me, I get all that. But in the grand scheme of things, you're not missing out on anything. Big picture right there. And truth be told, while most people, I'll only trash my own country, not other people's country. Most people in the US actually need to work out more, not less. Our audience might be a unique group where there's probably plenty of people in our audience that are working out plenty, or potentially like Joey, a bit too much, and actually would really benefit from some rest and hitting the brake pedal every now and then. What I would recommend you do if you have not, Joey, because you say you've got some low back pain, a recently tweaked knee, bit of tennis elbow, those things that you listed, without somebody with a more advanced medical degree than I am, those could be little nagging issues, or those could be something serious, or anything in between. What I would recommend you do, listen to Varied Not Random episode 141. We had on Dr. Sean Rocket on that episode, and it's entitled An Orthopedic Surgeon's Opinion on Squats and Deadlifts. And one of the things that he really said during that episode that jumped out at me was, in his opinion, he's also a CrossFitter, by the way, is how many people he thinks would benefit from a couple weeks rest, and these little nagging ailments that they have that quote unquote never seem to go away because we never allow them to go away. And if you let them go away didn't train for 2 weeks, let's say, you most likely might feel like a totally new man at the end of that. But there's this fear that if I do that, well, I'm missing out on the 2 weeks of training. And then, as he says, I'm just this amorphous blob at the end of the 2 weeks that will never recover and come back from that. And I would encourage you to roll the dice and take that chance and that risk. And I think you would feel far better for it.
Yeah, a couple thoughts in there. Number one, big second to Dr. Sean Rocket. Great guy. I actually had the good fortune of being up in the Boston area not too long ago and worked out at him and his wife's affiliate. So CrossFit Launchpad. It was a good time. Um, anyway, he also,
Great name, by the
yeah,
way.
he's also got a really cool resource, 321 Go MD, that has a lot of thoughts around common injuries. So you might find some specifics in there for some of the troubles that you find yourself in right now. So that might be just something right out the gate you can kind of dig into. But then I guess my broader point, and something you mentioned earlier, is like, hey, you're not missing out. To expand on that a little bit more, this is something that I think is very easy to forget when you are really involved in something that you enjoy and it has benefit in your life and all these things. And the thing that's easy to forget is that there's no single session that is so critical that if you miss it, that's it. The ship has sailed and you won't ever develop that thing that session was going to tackle. That is absolutely nonsense. And that's true in so many aspects of life. I mean, that's true for almost anything that's worthwhile working towards. There's not going to be a single act that makes or breaks it, nor is there going to be a single opportunity to drive it further in the direction of progress, etc. And so that mindset of, oh man, if I miss this session, that's it. It can be
Right.
harnessed. It can be harnessed for good, because I do think, like I said in the beginning, it kind of speaks to this mentality of, I'm not going to let myself just be a sloth on the couch. And that's the good in it. But the bad in it is when you start to fall into that position where you do start to believe that anytime I let my foot off the gas at all, I am missing a critical element that cannot be captured again. That sort of thinking is not only objectively untrue, but it starts to create all sorts of weird incentives in your mind. And you got to check that, because it's not helpful. And in this case, it sounds like it's actually starting to veer into the opposite end of things. It's actively unhelpful. So that would be my first thing to really start to examine, is like, okay, do I have this belief that if I miss out now, that's it? I'm
Right.
somehow never going to be able to make this back, and I'm never going to develop, whatever it was that was going on in the gym today. Because if that's the case, and you take that long look in the mirror, and that's kind of the message you're telling yourself, it's like, man, you gotta get right with that, because that is not true and not helpful.
I've got a couple points for Joe. Is number one, you can lay off some things that are hurting you and figure out what doesn't hurt you, and continue to move your body. Find out what's pain free, and maybe you have to avoid some lower body. You're going to avoid hinging at the hip, like whatever it is. There's a whole bunch of other fitness stuff out there that you can do, my friend, and you can keep yourself active and mentally engaged and feel good during that time. And I lived this life recently. It's been about 7 months now since I had that total hip replacement, which, to say that knocked me on my butt is an understatement. And I was inactive for quite a long period of time, the longest I've been in a while. And I'm still coming back 7 months after that. And I kind of share Joey's mentality. Like, I take my rest days, but I don't like missing workout days. Like, that actually really bothers me. And even though I know better, I feel like I'm missing out. It's like, I get that. But time has gone by, things are going great, and my body feels better than it ever has, because I did something which was necessary. So if you need to take some time, Joey, it will pay off in the long run. And here are maybe some, your friend and mine, arithmetic. Everyone enjoys math. So if taking a couple weeks off seems like 2 weeks, whoa, let's assume for a second, stay with me, kids. You work out 5 times a week. There's 52 weeks in a year. That means you're going to work out 260 times over the course of a calendar year. 2 full weeks would be 10 training days, because you work out 5 days a week. If you miss 10 days out of that 260, that's 3.8% of your training days. That's less than 4% of your training days. So if you decided not to work out 4% of the year, and that made the other 96% of the year productive, meaningful, and pain-free, I think that is the best use of 4% in the whole world. And when you look at it, 4% versus 96%, it seems like the simplest math in the world. When you say take 2 weeks off, you're like, 2 weeks? If you have a long-term view, if you're only thinking about this month, yeah, 2 weeks is a lot. It's half the time. If you look at the whole year and your long-term health and fitness, 2 weeks is a great investment in your body.
Yeah, for sure. And I would also say too, kind of a throwback to some of the advice that we've been given recently. Interviewing some of these high-level coaches and athletes, and a recurring theme seems to be the utility of these deload weeks and taking the time that you need. And a recurring theme also seems to be that, like, hey, high-level athletes don't like to hear that. They
Correct.
don't want. A lot of them don't want to take that time off because they do have that fundamental belief that, like, okay, maybe I'll fall behind, maybe my competition will still be training, et cetera, et cetera. Harder to convince yourself to do it. And so, what we've heard recently is, hey, make the deal. Make the deal. So you're not dealing with somebody else externally, and this is not a coach to athlete relationship, but you can make the deal with yourself. Okay, self, I'm going to give myself 2 weeks. And if at the end of that 2 weeks, and then I get back into training, I'm not feeling better, I don't have a renewed kind of interest and vigor for what I'm bringing to the table in my training sessions, I don't see the pendulum start to swing so that I'm making progress again, like, okay, maybe I won't take 2 weeks off again in the future. But if, on the other hand, I take that 2 weeks off and I come back and I'm like, oh, some of these aches and pains are not an issue anymore. Oh, you know what? I can bring more intensity to the single session and I'm more engaged when I'm there because I'm not feeling like I'm just dragging my butt, through the gravel every time. That might be the best realization after you've given yourself the opportunity to actually do it. So make that deal with yourself ahead of time. Hey, look, self, this is a 2-week engagement. I'm going to do it and I'm going to see what happens afterwards. And then we're going to make the assessment. But during that 2-week time frame, the decision has been made. I'm not going back and forth on this. I'm not going to go and
Commit to
maybe I'll
it.
go to the gym one day. Exactly. You've already set the parameters. There's an accepted, kind of path forward with this. And that can take some of the sting out of the overthinking around, well, is this really the best path forward? It's like, okay, well, we're going to run the experiment and see.
I've only got one more thing for Joey.
Yeah. I got one more too.
Okay. And that's, well, first of all, during this time, since you're not going to be working out, try to get extra sleep. That's a wonderful thing on top of everything else. And then 2 weeks off, not all 2 weeks are created equal. If during those 2 weeks off, as long as you don't eat like a drunken pirate, you're going to be great. Now, if during those 2 weeks it's an all bets are off Vegas paid vacation sort of a deal, you can put on 17 pounds of bad weight, and then the comeback feels like awful. But take 2 weeks off, keep the diet nice and clean, get some good sleep, and I would put a lot of money in the fact that you'll come back feeling like a new man.
Yeah, for sure. Last thing that I wanted to kind of touch on here, and again, it'd be really interesting to have this conversation in person because I think you could kind of peel back some layers. But I am kind of curious if it's Joey, right? Yeah, if Joey's the type of person who has had a problem in the past where he has just like been unmotivated, been the type of person that months go by and he's just, having trouble getting out of bed, having trouble getting off the couch. And if so, is that kind of creating this fear that if I miss a session, I'm going to revert back to this old way of life that maybe I'm not so happy about? Or has he been the type of person that hasn't really struggled with that motivation, but there's that what if? What if I give myself a little slack? Maybe I would become that person. Because those are two very different scenarios. The type of person that struggled with that kind of discipline in the past, and maybe it's taken them a long time to build up to where they are now. I get it. That's a valid fear that you don't want to spiral back into like an old unhealthy pattern of life. Okay, maybe you do need to consider in this off time something to keep yourself occupied, right? So that, to your point, you don't go off the rails with all these other lifestyle factors. But if you're the type of person that's never really been a problem, and maybe it's that fear that's kind of driven you to be a little bit more obsessive about it, whatever it is, that's fine. But I would say that if you are of that kind of naturally nose to the grindstone mentality, and you're going to take those 2 weeks off or whatever that time frame is, give yourself the latitude to really experience that without feeling like you have to put some of these other elements in the mix. And maybe you don't have to fill it with all these other things. Just take that time and step away. and see what happens.
And if need be, whether it's family, friends, or your fitness community, have somebody you can lean on if you just need to vent about something, or you feel yourself about to make a bad decision. You're only 4 days into the 2 weeks and you feel the barbell calling you in the gym. Hey, phone a friend. Like, walk me off the ledge. Do what you got to do. But yeah, well, hopefully that helps. I mean, it's funny. Everybody deals with something with working out, whether it's just getting into the gym, or it's staying in the gym too long, whether it's what you should load in the barbell, whether it's when you should strip weight off the barbell, like whatever, there's something going on there. So hopefully, Joey, that helps you. Have you worked out yet today? Are you going to work out?
I have not worked out today, and I'm not sure if I'm going to. I got a Sunday workout in yesterday, and usually I don't work out on Sundays, but I had an opportunity to go work out with a friend who also had another friend in town yesterday. So we got a little session in. It was good. It was a bunch of sled pushing and bar dips, and it was a good time. And so because of that, my normal Sunday rest day was kind of eaten up. So I think today might be kind of on brand for the topic, actually. Today might be my chill out and not do much of anything.
There you go. And somehow you'll be okay.
I think so. I hope so.
Yep. Somehow you'll be okay. Well, Joey, we appreciate the question. Everyone out there in the VNR community, we appreciate all of you as well. Keep the questions coming. You can find this episode on the btwb YouTube channel under the VNR playlist. Find this episode, post your thoughts about listening to your body, dealing with FOMO, all that kind of good stuff. What would you have told Joey? Tips and tricks that you found work well for yourself. If you have an idea for a future show, post it in those comments. Those comments help drive the content. And of course, you go to Instagram, the Very Not Random Instagram page. You can post a question just publicly under any photo that's there. Those all make their way to us. Or if you want to be a little bit more anonymous, you can send it as a direct message on Instagram to the Very Not Random channel, and we will get that as well. So that's it for Adrian Bosman. I'm Pat Sherwood, and we'll see you next time.